Welcome to the Mojo podcast, a place for curious minds to fill up on insight and inspiration to apply to your life so you can keep your mojo flying and not falling. I'm your host, Richard Stokes, and it's a joy to be here with you, whether this is your first episode or you've been enjoying this podcast since Series 1. Nearly 3 years ago, when I began this project to better understand and support our mojo. I'm excited to be back after a short summer break since we completed Series 4, when I spoke to a group of amazing founders and got under the skin of what Mojo means to them. For Series 5, something new for you, but with the same Mojo values. Intimate and powerful conversations with incredible people who I believe you need to hear from right now. This is the Practitioners series, experts in their fields and all with an amazing story to tell. I believe what they do and what they talk about can make a real difference to you. Some things you may be aware of already and some things will be completely new. This is, as my guest today talks about, the great invitation for you to spend some time on you to go deeper and think more about your mojo, however you define it. I bring these amazing resources to you here every fortnight, so please hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcasts and share with anyone in your life who's curious and motivated about self-development. And I have an outstanding conversation for you for this first episode. Indeed, a first for this podcast, as I've asked a previous guest back for the first time, as I knew a conversation with him would set this series up beautifully.
And so when people start inquiring about purpose, what they're actually asking, Rich, and this is what I was asking myself, is how do I fully express myself in the world? That's the yearning, that's the longing. How do I fully express myself? And from that longing, we arrive at this context called purpose.
So if that sounds like you or someone you care about, please do listen in. I think this is going to be a great resource for self-awareness and growth. Bodhi Aldridge is a great friend of mine and indeed a teacher for me. He has a global coaching practice supporting leaders in many fields. He's an author and quite simply helps you remember who you really are. Today we go deep into the subject of purpose, what it is, why we should be interested in understanding ours. In this episode, Bodhi shares his own hero's journey and explains this important concept to us, how he understood his own masculine energy and how he brings meaning to his life every day. And Bodhi shares multiple tips and insights on how you too can do more of this really important reflective inner work, how you can conquer your ego mind and fully express yourself. I think you're going to love this one, and there are plenty of resources within the podcast and within the show notes if you're interested to delve into afterwards. So let's connect with Bodhi in Australia and go into the first Mojo conversation of this new series. So welcome back to the Mojo podcast, and this is the beginning, the very first episode of the 5th series of the Mojo podcast. It's wonderful to be back, and it's wonderful to welcome back a really good friend of mine and previous guest, Bodhi Aldridge, who joins me just north of Byron Bay in lovely Australia. Bodhi, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Richard. It is lovely, actually. It's a beautiful time here, just towards the end of winter. And lovely to be back. Good to connect again.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting here kind of sweating in Ibiza in a t-shirt. You're all cozied up in a jumper there in Australia as the world spins around. But it's great to see you again and have you on the podcast again. And obviously since, as I explained in the intro, since we connected on this podcast or over 2 years ago, we've done lots of work with each other. We've become great friends and we share a lot between each other. And we were chatting about this next series, The Practitioners, and really talking about a core theme that we were going to touch on today, which is around purpose. So we're really going to unpack that today. But of course, before I go further, you say it's a lovely day with you today, but I want to check in on your mojo today. So 1 out of 10, Bodhi, or out of 10, I should say, where's your mojo tracking today?
Yeah, I'd say I'm sitting at an 8. It's interesting, for me, we'll talk more about Mojo. It is an inside out job, yet it is so nice when I've been to the beach a couple of times. It's a perfectly clear day, had a swim. So it does help your Mojo. It's an inside out and outside in, I think.
Okay, so, right. Okay, well, I'm sure we're going to get into that as well. But the outside in bit, I guess, the environment that you're in and that connection with the elements, with nature today helping.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the study's there yet. It's not being dependent on the outside yet. It can help things. And I've also just had my 10th grandchild in the last few weeks. So,
Whoa.
yeah. So talk about
Congratulations.
Mojo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
10.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I've just had a grandson, so I've got 7 granddaughters and 3 grandsons.
Wow. That's a lot of birthdays to remember.
Yes, I just booked my flights to go and see my daughter. She's in Australia, but it's a plane trip. So it is a lot of birthdays to remember, that's for sure.
Well, that's great. And when we talk about Mojo, I know you gave a definition to this before, and I'm really curious about whether that's shifted. It's the same. What's Mojo mean to you?
I think it's the same, actually. I was reflecting on it, knowing we were going to have this chat, and if you think about the masculine, and obviously we're going to talk about that, and that's a big body of work that I do, and we can define that. To me, Mojo, the key pillars are presence, purpose, and passion. And for me, in my personal practice and what I teach the men I work with is how to really get present. What is presence? How to inhabit embodied presence more often. How to align with your purpose for many levels that we're going to talk about, and how to bring passion into all of your life. And for me, there's such important pillars for the masculine, because if they're aligned, then Mojo, becomes, such an expression through all 3 of those.
Got it. So I love that. I think since we talked about it last time, that passion, purpose, and presence has really stuck with me, and I've been working on all 3 of mine since we spoke, and a lot of that's with you, and today is going to be a real dive in and explore on the subject of purpose, so one of those key pillars of Mojo, and before we dive into that in detail, I'd love to get a sense from you and for the audience of kind of, I guess, why you are here doing this work now. What's been your journey that's brought you to, I'm guessing, finding your purpose? So can you give us a bit of a potted tour of your history?
Well, just as you said that, I was working with a client in London recently and talking about his experience with not having a great connection with his father. And it's not good or bad, yet how that's informed him on his journey. And just as you said that, I automatically went to, my foundational journey of, when my parents separated, and, I have a relationship with my father, but we were estranged for quite some time, and how that started to inform this whole inquiry into the masculine, into who am I, from an early age, I think, because the role model wasn't there, the scaffolding wasn't there. And I think that sparked in me, and in some ways the quest, as a young man to really go, what is it to be a man? Who am I as a man? What is this masculine? And with that undercurrent, my wife and I got married quite young, in our 20s, and we had children young as well. And I remember in my late 20s, I think it was the first time I really got away on my own and went on I think it was 7-day sabbatical, but it was almost like a little bit of a vision quest.
Right.
With a young family, I was a lawyer, as you know, for 20 years, and then I transitioned out of that. And so, busy law practice. And so went away and just took myself away. And again, not a lot of this was conscious. I knew I wanted to get away, but in hindsight, it was like a vision quest. It was like really, and this is important for the masculine, particularly in the connection with purpose. This time to retreat, this time to connect with vision. And I think that really sparked a deeper inquiry on my journey into self, into personal and spiritual development. And that theme carried along. Even though I was a lawyer, I was still doing my own inquiry into Buddhism, into energy, and my wife was very committed to her journey as well. And then at the age of 39, I actually got a business coach into my legal practice. We'd left the city and had a regional practice. I had 3 offices, and she was amazing, but she said to me, "You're not that passionate about being a lawyer, are you?" I was a bit like,
well. She cut straight to it.
That's right. Fair observation.
Yeah.
And that's when the whole, window of opportunity of becoming a coach was revealed to me. She came in, she helped me, and she saw in me the possibility of becoming a coach. And that was a big transition, which has brought me here. What she said, I'll help you tidy up your business so you can sell your legal practice. Yeah, and come and play with me. Come and learn with me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, my wife was so supportive because we had 4 children, we had a mortgage. I'm not suggesting people do this, and we'll talk about how it can reveal itself.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a perturbation. It was sitting with the excitement of it and also the tension of it. And then again, with a lot of support from my wife and I guess the skills that I had, that's when I transitioned into coaching. And that was, 20 years ago now.
So at that time, and thank you for that, that explanation of the journey. And I guess what was striking me was you were asking yourself a lot of questions from quite early on. You said you were married early and you had a lot of responsibility early, from the sounds of it, 4 kids coming along quite quickly. And you were asking yourself all these questions and you were finding some answers. And then I was going to ask, who else helped you find the answers? And there you are, the business coach comes into your life. Your wife's helping you, by the sounds of it as well, finding those answers. So is it often the case that finding a guide, finding some support can help?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know we've got some questions from some of the listeners, and I think that was one of the questions. Yeah, yes. I think that was one of the questions is, yeah, absolutely. Again, I'll talk and define a little bit more around the masculine hero's journey. Yeah, fundamentally, there's a point on the hero's journey, where the sage arrives, the mentor arrives.
Right.
Yeah. And, again, we see this in all of the beautiful movies that have followed that theme. And so, and for the masculine, again, particularly the masculine who hasn't had a strong role model of the masculine. Again, not good or bad, but it's like, we're navigating, certainly if I speak for myself, I was navigating marriage, mortgage, children, career, purpose. Yeah, my time with my friends, my health, it's all of these things that are part of the matrix of life. And yes, obviously having good friends is part of it, yet I believe that a teacher, a mentor, a sage, using the hero's journey phrase is essential, and that can vary. I've had lots of great teachers, lots of great mentors at different stages of that, and I would definitely recommend to people that if they haven't, definitely it's important. Yeah.
And also on sort of looking back on your journey, at what point were you thinking about this word that we're we're attaching ourselves to today, purpose? Were you thinking about that as a concept back then?
No, it's interesting. And the thing with purpose is a context. And so context gives meaning to our lives. Yet the word context is that which gives meaning. So what it actually is, the whole aim of purpose, it's a context to give meaning to your life. And inherently, the world is meaningless until you give it a meaning. And so when people start inquiring about purpose, what they're actually asking, Rich, and this is what I was asking myself, is how do I fully express myself in the world? That's the yearning, that's the longing. And again, I'll speak to the masculine and men in their masculine, but it's the same for the feminine. That's the longing in all of us. How do I fully express myself? And from that longing, we arrive at this context called purpose. And so to answer your question, I had the longing. Yeah, I had the longing. Yeah. I knew there was more. I wanted to express more. I wanted to give more of myself to the world. I wasn't sitting there necessarily going, what's my purpose? But in hindsight, that's what was driving it. And that's what I see with my clients. There's that part of them. It's like, I want to fully express myself. I know there's more. Yeah, I want to experience in the world. And one of the pillars is the context of purpose.
Right. And that's when you said that word longing, light bulb went off for me as well, because that's what I felt about 5 or so years ago, before I made the change, a bit like you, from a corporate environment into working for myself, also as a coach. And it was a longing, a yearning for, there's something greater. I'm not sure what it is yet, but I know I'm on the road to it. And like you, I had some teachers, sages I'd met fortunately on the way. But that really, for me, and hopefully for the audience, that gives a real sense, context to what we're talking about. I think with purpose. And another reason why we decided to get together and talk about this is a sense that there is a lot of talk and noise around the concept of purpose. Do you think you understand it clearly and you're an expert in it? Do you think it's fully understood, universally understood, or are there lots of different kind of aspects of purpose going on?
Yeah. And maybe if I just for the listeners, talk a little bit about the masculine, a little bit about the hero's journey before I jump into that. And again, the masculine and feminine energy is energy that runs through the whole universe. It runs through the planet, and it runs through us. It's the polarity that drives things. And most men are in their masculine energy. As a generalization, it's not gender-based yet often, and a lot of women are in their feminine energy. But it is about accessing both. And so just to and the hero's journey, again, using that phrase is, and of course the great work of Joseph Campbell is that, we're informed by mythology. Our psychic is informed by the collective archetypal mythology. And all the traditions had the story of the hero's journey and the heroine's journey. And so, again, just for language sake, I'll talk about that through the lens of the hero's journey and the masculine. And obviously it does apply to women, and the heroine's journey is a slightly different journey. To answer your question, where you meet the question of purpose is where you are on your hero's journey. And that's why I saw something recently where there's over 150,000 books on Amazon on purpose.
So our thesis is correct. There's a lot of conversation about. In fact, just list that I was looking. There's the sort of the teaching platform Udemy. I might not be pronouncing that correctly, but I think it's Udemy. There's over 3,000 courses with the keyword purpose in it. So there you go. There's. It sounds to me that there's a hunger to understand purpose.
And I think the hunger is to fully express ourselves. And we've seen, however you want to phrase the last couple of years, whether you call it the Great Resignation or the Great Reflection, I believe it's the Great Invitation. Oh, that's what we've been offered. It's the great invitation to actually really take stock and invite yourself to really get to know yourself. What's driving that, again, in my experience and working with many, many clients, mainly men around the world, is this deep longing and yearning to fully express themselves. And so, yes, 150,000 books, 3,000 courses. It's like it's because that's where we go. But it's really interesting in the conversations to really get a sense of, where am I meeting that question? Where am I on my hero's journey? And the interesting thing with purpose is there are three layers to purpose.
Okay.
There's the inner purpose, there's the outer purpose, and there's the higher purpose.
Okay, so let's get this. So inner, outer, and higher. Right. Okay. So already we're getting deeper into purpose than maybe we've been generally doing. Hearing a lot, I'd say a lot of noise around the word. So can you go into each of those and give us a little explanation of each? And I'm interested in, do we need to have all of them? or how do we access it? I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but so just give me a sort of an explanation of each of those layers would be great.
Your quandary there's a great one, because the masculine looks at life linearly, and this isn't lineal. These three layers are a spiral.
Okay.
And so we spiral across all three layers consistently on our journey. And again, typically we're like, as men in our masculine, it's like, well, A, B, C, life's lineal. I'm start here, I end there. Yeah, that's just a filter that the masculine experiences the world.
Yeah. As
opposed to this beautiful, rich, and fundamentally, as you know, the journey is the destination. Yet it's tricky when you're, really investigating these three layers, to really get that. And so the inner purpose, again, remembering it's a spiral, so the hero's journey, so the young man goes on his quest. And in the Western world, typically, because we don't have the rites of passage that traditional culture had, we have your 21st birthday, you get drunk with your friends, you go and do a gap year, you travel the world. You might go to India and do some meditation. Yeah, that's kind of, that's probably risky these days, it's like, but the quest, because essentially the collective driver in the hero's journey, the archetypal driver is we're looking for the Holy Grail. Key driver for the masculine is freedom. The key driver for the feminine is connection and love. So the young man is looking for freedom, but he's looking outside himself. He's looking for the grail in India. He's looking for the grail in relationships. He's looking for the grail in nightclubs, maybe, whatever it might be. Somewhere I'm going to find this thing.
Yeah.
But there comes a point on the hero's journey where he realizes that the Holy Grail was on the bedside table all along. It's within us. And that's the inner purpose journey. And most people start to inquire, but the rigor to keep inquiring in this spiral is essential if you want to be fulfilled with your outer purpose, if you really want to touch your highest purpose. You've got to be willing to continue the inner journey, the inner purpose to the grail.
Which as you said, the journey is a destination. This is a life's work. This just carries on and carries on and carries on.
Yep. Yeah. You touch it at different times. You're not touching the same thing because it's a spiral, but you can touch some of those patterns. And this is the inner work, and a lot of your listeners are well and truly into that. And for those who are unsure of that, what we know, and I love the fact that the neurology now, the biology is really measuring a lot of what goes on, apart from what the mystics have been telling us. And what we know is that your past experience, whatever your past experience, has left an emotional signature on your subconscious, on your energetic field. And it's not good or bad, but that emotional signature, your past, is informing you today. And a big part of the inner work that most of us are doing, is to acknowledge, to recalibrate, to discover, to get to know all of us, all of ourselves, to really love and accept all of us, the shadow work, which is becoming, again, much more a conversation, the willingness to do the shadow work, the willingness to recalibrate any trauma. And to the listeners, if the question of purpose is coming up for you and you're not doing the inner journey, then you're missing out on what you're looking for with purpose.
Right. Okay. So is there a sense, I suppose when you hear purpose, often, again, I'm generalizing, but it can be, I'm going to do something for someone else. And for whatever reasons I choose to do that, but it's not within me. It's almost a show of, the classic, right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go and build that school in Africa. And that, which is a noble thing to do, of course. But I think for me, when purpose comes up, that can be the thought, that can be the example. Am I making some sense of that?
Yeah, the journey is to move from the egoic purpose to the heroic purpose.
Right.
So a lot of people meet that question through the ego. And again, I'll come to the outer purpose, and I'll bring that. I just want to add the other piece on the inner purpose.
Yeah.
Yep. So the purpose, of the hero's journey through that lens, and the purpose of life through that lens is to reveal your essence. The Holy Grail is when you can connect with that essence part of yourself, the deepest part of yourself, however you want to language that. And then bring your gifts to the world connected with that. And to find that there are trials and tribulations, slay the dragon, the knight's journey, however you want to describe it, and bringing your gifts, there are trials and tribulations. And so that bringing those gifts to the world starts to inform the question about your outer purpose.
Okay.
And that's why where you meet the question depends where you are on your hero's journey. Where is your spiritual development, emotional development, cognitive development, relational development? Where are you on that journey? Yeah. Because if you meet the question, as you say, purely through the ego, and the ego being all of our limiting beliefs, the healthy ego and the unhealthy ego. So if you meet that through the unhealthy ego, what happens is you're looking outside yourself, for the fulfillment. When I build the school in Africa, then I will be. When I make a difference in the world, then I will be. It's the old be, do, have. Fundamentally, the way a lot of people, and I've lived a lot of my life this way, is that when I have, whatever that might be, and the common one in the Western world is when I have all the money stuff sorted, then I'm going to do what I really want to do. And then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be on purpose, and I'm going to be joyful.
Got it. Right.
And we spend our lives going, one day, someday, soon, I've just got to have this sorted. I've just got to have the mortgage paid off, the business sorted, the marriage sorted. Then I'll do what I really want to do. And it's always going to be outside yourself. The real skill, and this is one of the simple questions your listeners can ask themselves if they're inquiring around purpose. The real skill is whatever you're seeking outside yourself. When I have, then I'll do, then I'll be, is to really realize you can choose that now. You get to choose your feelings. You get to choose your emotional state and your state of being. So if you're looking for peace, choose it now. So if you're conscious of who am I being in this moment while I'm doing that, whatever that is, be happy, be peaceful, be free. And then do what supports you in that space. If you're happy, peaceful, and free, doing what supports you, then the have will follow. Whatever the have is. Have is an outcome. The classic question around outer purpose is people say, why don't you just do what brings you joy? The more powerful question, I think, is why don't you bring joy to what you do?
Right. The former question suggests where you are now is not the right place. What you're doing now is not the right thing. You must create change. And your follow-up question suggests, as you said, make the choice to feel the joy in what you're doing now, and then it follows.
And this is how purpose reveals itself, outer purpose. It's the same with passion. There's a lot of conversations around passion. Why don't you just do what you're passionate about? Well, there's an aspect of that, particularly as men. Yeah, particularly if you are in a corporate or you've got commitments to your family. Mm-hmm. It is important to bring certain passionate things into your life. But instead of looking and, do what brings you passion, bring passion to what you do. And a lot of people are closer to that than they think.
Right. Okay.
Because two things. One is, at the deepest level, we're always on purpose. Wherever you are right now is exactly where you need to be. Yeah. Whatever's revealing itself to you in your outer world, your relationships, your career, fundamentally, there's an opportunity. The great invitation is to go, what's this showing me? And if you really distill it, and this is why people get tricked up with the outer purpose, they think I've got to leave my job, or I've got to leave my marriage. I've got to go and, go to India or whatever it might be. The reality is that if whatever qualities you're looking for, so if you're thinking about joy, if you're thinking about happiness, peace, if you really focus on each day and bringing that to the supermarket checkout, to the time with your children, to your clients at work, what you'll find is that those qualities you can actually pretty quickly start to instill in your current life. And you'll start to notice that there is a lot of fulfillment where you are now. You're actually closer than you think. It's not about building an orphanage in Africa necessarily. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think it provides me and hopefully the listeners a sense of, there's a reassurance in that. As I said, I had this feeling that being on purpose, chasing, it feels like it is a bit of a chase, a grasp. Purpose means wholesale change and disruption, which can work. And you've talked about your story of change, and I have mine, and I'm sure listeners have their own. But it doesn't necessarily mean to understand and get close to your purpose means ripping everything up and starting again.
Exactly. And the thing to note for the masculine is there's purpose within purpose within purpose. We're layering and revealing parts of ourselves. So finding your deepest true purpose, and sure, some people come into this world with certain dharma and certain karma, that allows them to access that, in a different way. This isn't based on age necessarily, but it's based on the inquiry of, the fundamental question in all spiritual traditions is, who am I? And if you haven't sat with that question, because what that does is that provides the foundation for the way you orient your life. And so if you really reflect on that question, and again, most spiritual practices, it's spiritual reflection 101. You start to realize that so much of our identity can get caught up in the stuff, the doing. I am a lawyer, I am a husband, those sorts of things. And so once you start to realize that and start to orient your life from your essence, perhaps more than from your ego, then what occurs is you start to realize that there's purpose within purpose within purpose. A big chunk of my life, my purpose was to be a father and a husband and provide for my family. Now that may sound old school, the old masculine, but I made that commitment consciously or unconsciously. I committed to my wife, I committed to my children. And even though I transitioned out of my first career, I did 20 years as a lawyer, really clear that at times, I had struggled to bring joy to the law. Yet my context, my bigger purpose was, I've committed to this. I love surfing. I'm passionate about surfing. But I'm not going to be a professional surfer. Even though in my 20s, I might have thought I could have been. But every time I reflected on it, my purpose at the time was to be a father and to be a husband. And all of this, again, it's a spiral. There are different stages in your journey. There are different stages. It ebbs and flows. There are times when you're clear on your purpose. I think one of our listeners asked, about there sometimes can be a gap. You can complete a purpose Yep, a mission. Yep, and you know you're complete when you really do the reflection. And again, sometimes you're waiting for the next vision.
So this is how purpose can develop.
Exactly.
Right,
Purpose,
right.
yes, purpose reveals itself.
Yeah.
The four keys to your outer purpose, because I know, again, some of the questions that came through is, I'm not sure how to get started.
Yeah.
How do I? Yeah. And so again, do the reflection. Start to notice where you are in your inner journey. But the four keys is the first key, because purpose reveals itself. Remember, your outer purpose will reveal itself. The first key is to get fully present. Whatever it takes to develop your practice, your presencing practice, your mindfulness, your yoga, your whatever it might be, to get fully present. The second is just set your intention. The power of intention. The intention, is different to purpose. And we can talk in another podcast perhaps. But set your intention. If your intention is to be of service, if your intention is to make a difference in the world, if your intention is to bring joy to the world, just sit with that as an intention. Get present, set your intention, then show up fully, with an open heart to what's in front of you now. Wherever you are, open your heart, give 110% to your current business, to your current corporate, to your, again, to the supermarket, wherever you are. Start being fully present with an open heart and give, that beautiful open heart from that place of being. And the fourth step is to follow the energy. Follow your intuition. What happens is people will show up, opportunities will show up. If you're fully present with an open heart, you'll be amazed. Remember, we create our life, we create our reality, based on our energetic vibration. And when your heart's open and you're fully present, you're going to start attracting opportunities. Someone's going to say, can you come and help here? And you might go, trust your intuition, that little voice inside of you, that gut feel. It's like, you know what, I can help here. And then you go there and you meet someone and says, you know what, could you help me with this? And this has been my journey. And I know with your Founders series, Rich, this is the consistent journey. None of them sat there and went, this is what I'm going to create.
Yeah.
Over the next, they had an intention.
Yeah.
They had an inkling. But it revealed itself because they fully showed up and they were committed.
I was going to say, well, the key word that was absolutely about commitment is about exactly. This is what we're doing, and some of them created contexts where it has to work because of there's no more money, or I've given this thing up, or I've chosen this. But it was I think, and thanks for bringing that up. The last series, commitment was absolutely the key word for that success, for their purpose, and a lot of those people were absolutely right on purpose. And they discovered theirs.
Exactly. And as you know, commitment means I choose to have no more choice.
Yes.
And that's what entrepreneurs and founders, whether they're conscious or not, they wake up every day absolutely committed to their intention, and visualization can be useful to their vision, and they do whatever it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask, because I love those 4 steps in terms of getting to that outer purpose, and people love practical takeaways, and there's some in there. But is there anything that you would offer the audience that you're attempting to get to this, your outer purpose, but there's some blockages, things aren't quite going the way you thought they'd go? What would be your top tip?
Again, in what I've discussed so far, if you're experiencing that, the paralysis analysis, it's because you're in your egoic mind. Remember, our ego, our limited ego, is all of our fearful thinking, and this is where people get stuck. The lens they meet this question is, if only I knew what I was here to do. I just can't quite work it out. I'm not sure what the next step is. All of that is the egoic mind. And it will wrap you around in circles. And so the simple tips is, firstly, really be honest with yourself about what is the reflective practice that I have each day. the most successful leaders globally, and, obviously I work with a lot of leaders, and I know you do as well. The most successful leaders, the studies around successful leadership is they have at least once a day a reflective practice. Now, reflective can be meditation, can be contemplation, can be prayer. It's not going to the gym. It's not going for a bike ride. It's not running. That can be useful to unpack your mind, to obviously health and things like that. But that's not what we're talking about here. All of the traditional wisdom, there was a contemplative, reflective practice. And for most of us, that's a form of meditation. And again, the studies globally around effective leaders. Yeah. And so the first tip I would suggest is for people to really be honest with themselves. How much time do I spend each day reflecting and getting to know myself? Because if you don't know yourself and you don't love yourself, nothing outside of you is going to bring what you're looking for. And you can have every reason not to do the inner work, and your egoic mind will come up with lots.
Yeah.
And the reality is it is literally 5 minutes a day. And it doesn't come easy. The egoic mind won't make it easy. And so one of the tips for those who haven't got a strong daily practice, the key, if you want to start reflection and if you want to start some sort of meditation, contemplation, is the way to train your mind is to train your body. And the key to training your body is you've got to teach it to sit still. It's like training a dog, yeah? So start with 5 or 10 minutes a day and just sit, and your egoic mind will go crazy. You'll be going, I've got to reach for my phone, or I've got to, and if you train your body to sit and start to notice that rampant wild horses, the monkey mind, if you can do that, you will start to create a different relationship with yourself.
I was kind of laughing quietly to myself because I know what that's been like for me. And I meditate every day, but I still have that battle is still real. And it's, it's ongoing, but I just love that, the simplicity of that idea there of train yourself just to sit still, to be still, to be, to enjoy the silence, rather than, as you say, fill the silence. Because, and this is partly why I wanted to do this series, the sense that we are so distracted. We give ourselves very little time for pause, for reflection, and you nail it there, why reflective practice is so important, and the ROI of it is huge. Should we move into the third layer, into higher purpose?
Yeah.
Is that the right time?
And the point I'd say around that reflective practice is meditation doesn't come easy to anybody that I've met. And I get a lot of people going, it's not for me. Some people must come easy. People sit there thinking, everyone else is sitting there with no thoughts. It's like, and it's a bit like, if you want to get fit, you don't go to the gym 3 times. But the context is getting to know yourself and getting to know your thinking mind. 80,000 thoughts a day, most of them are negative. If you don't build a relationship with your thinking mind, your egoic mind, then this question of purpose is not going to be fulfilling, because it's still going to be through the lens of this thinking mind, which is the egoic mind. The way the egoic mind looks at the world is through the lens of deficiency, through lack. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And it will project outside going, if only I had that, then I would be. Again, back to the be, do, have.
Yeah.
So any of those questions people are asking is just know at some level it will be through the egoic lens, the unhealthy ego. And the thing is, you move towards higher purpose, and again, remembering this is a spiral, what happens is that, the conversation around your soul's purpose, which again is a common conversation, is, during this journey, this spiral journey, you'll start to get whispers from your soul. And soul can be, the word soul could be replaced by the word essence. So if we go back to the start of the podcast, the hero's journey is to find your essence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I hear soul purpose, that, you know, that's a big word, and it can be many connotations, but the essence is when you connect with the real you. Yeah, that part of you. And so what happens is during this, that you start to connect with that, the whisper, the inquiry, the intuition, the layers of purpose. What's my purpose at this point of the journey? Yeah, as I say, my purpose was to be a father. Yeah, it's like, great, that's the lens I'm going to look at it. And what happens is the more you inquire and the more you dive deeper into this hero's journey, your highest purpose, or the higher purpose, is instead of spending most of your life looking through the lens of the limited ego, you start to move back and view your life through the lens of your essence. And we're going through an incredible shift on the planet at the moment from the relative world to the quantum world. And the quantum world is where we realize we are all one. And what happens is when you start residing in that quantum field, then what happens is that consciousness, divinity, whatever you want to call it, starts to come through you. This is the higher purpose. This is when the impulses, it's almost like the I becomes, you know, very connected with the whole. And it takes practice. You know, I certainly don't sit in this place myself. I'm on my journey as well. But what I know is when you start to taste that, you start to realize, that this field of oneness is informing us all of the time. And it's wanting to experience through you, the highest possibility. And that's a very different stage of the hero's journey. And that's a very different expression of purpose that a lot more people on the planet are experiencing. You know, as we see the collapse, there's also the beautiful rise of awareness, consciousness. A lot of elders that have done amazing work during their life and now really bringing that and holding that. And so this soul's purpose, this essence that's whispering to you, that's expressing yourself. And as I say, some people are born with dharma and karma that really accelerates this. But for most of us, particularly, you know, in the Western world, married, mortgaged, children, it's a journey. And as you move more towards it, you start to connect more with that. And then that becomes a different layer. That's the higher purpose where it's coming through you. Does that make sense?
I would be lying if I said I understood all of it. Bodhi, to be frank, when we, you know, getting into the, you know, obviously into the higher layer of purpose, it's a stretch for me. I'm getting a sense of it. I don't know that I've experienced that. You know, I'm on my journey as you describe yours. I'm intrigued. I'm curious about it, and hopefully listeners are too. I'm a bit perplexed as well because that level of understanding. So I'm being very honest with you here in terms of kind of where I'm landing with it. As you described it, you know, that very first question I asked about, you know, is it linear? Do I have to go this, and this? And as you say, it's not. It's the spiral, which I understand in nature. The spiral is that, you know, that this dominant, powerful shape that shows up everywhere. It's an incredible thing, the spiral. So I can almost see it, if not fully understand it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, for all of us, you know, life is experiential. You know, I could understand everything about purpose, but understanding is the booby prize. The only way you get to experience purpose is through the experience. It's like understanding chocolate ice cream. How do you get to know what chocolate ice cream's like? You gotta taste it.
Gotta taste it.
And again, that intellectual mind, you know, that egoic mind will want to understand it as opposed to experience it.
Yeah. And that slightly brings up another question that came in on LinkedIn about, you know, the need to have purpose. And we've been unpacking it here for everybody.
Yeah.
But on that, you know, is there a need to taste it? Is there a need to experience it? What if we don't? What if we choose to go, that question, who am I don't choose to answer that question.
And this is where, again, we're moving from the relative paradigm to the quantum paradigm. And so, in all traditional wisdom, this mythology, this archetypal hero's journey is informing you. There is that essence in you. The question, I think, around does everything need to have a purpose is actually the question is, or the statement is, everything has a context.
Mm.
And so remember, purpose is a context. And this is where people get tricked up. I think part of the question was, if I'm having a cup of coffee, does that have to have a purpose? Yeah.
Well, like you were talking about, going, everyday things like going to the supermarket. Should that have a purpose as well? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The reality is it has a context. And remember, 90% of your operating system is your subconscious mind. You're not conscious of it. So when you have a cup of coffee, you have a context for that. And usually you're unconscious. And context gives meaning to content, gives meaning to the experience. So one morning you're having a cup of coffee, it's like, I'm a bit tired, I need some caffeine, I'm on my way to work. Yeah. It has a purpose. It has a context. You're giving meaning to it through that context. The next morning, I really want to sit in the garden and enjoy my cup of coffee and do some contemplation. Both times you're having a cup of coffee.
Both have purpose.
Exactly.
Right.
And context gives meaning to content. So that purpose gives meaning to it. And this is the interesting thing. We don't have time around organizational purpose, which is another layer of this.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, we've been talking about personal purpose. The first thing around, if you're running your own business, if you're an owner or a founder, your personal purpose will be very aligned to the purpose of the organization. That's often the case when you start to reflect. When you move into corporate, and that it's been a lot of work in the last decade around purpose in corporate. It's your purpose doesn't have to be the same as the corporate purpose. It's just, are we aligned? And
I think that there was a question about purpose clash, which came up as well in that, and that I think it describes that I as an individual understand my purpose. However, the organization I work for does not share that purpose. So we have this mismatch or this clash. What you're talking about is it doesn't have to be the same, but some kind of alignment is healthy.
Yeah, there's two distinctions. So if it's an absolute values violation, if you're working for a tobacco company, and it's probably a good thing to leave.
And if you're vehemently anti-smoking.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
if that's a real values violation.
Yeah.
If you're working in an organization where the culture isn't healthy, where you're struggling with, what projects they're delivering, I would go back to those 4 steps around get present, set your intention, open your heart, and follow your intuition. Yeah. And so what happens with that is, remember, you get to bring joy to everything you do. So tomorrow when you're going into work, notice, where am I coming from here? No matter what's going on externally. Yeah. Who am I being? Am I bringing joy? Am I bringing presence? Am I bringing openness? Yeah. Start that practice. Yeah. You've already done your 5 minutes training your dog, your body.
Yes. Monkey mind. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you start, again, practical tips. Just notice, who am I being in this moment? When I go to that team meeting, what energy am I bringing? Because if you're in your pinhead and you're judging and criticizing and frustrated and blaming, that's just the egoic mind. It's like, bring your presence, bring some calm, bring some joy. And then start that practice in your life. Open your heart. You'll be amazed. Opportunities may arise in that organization. You may transform that organization. There's some great stories about middle management transforming organizations by bringing their purpose and values. Yeah, I think there was one of the corporates in America where one of the middle managers, was an African American, and he was just a recruitment manager. But within 10 years, they had a multicultural, diverse and inclusive organization, because that's all he was recruiting.
Wow.
And he was a middle manager. Like, he wasn't making the big decisions, but he was in his lane. And he went, you know what? I think we need more diversity, more multicultural the masculine, the feminine, etc. And over that period of time, that organization was transformed without him doing a tap dance. He just, okay, I'm just going to put that lens through it.
He just understood his purpose. As I said, showed up fully, opened his heart, and did what he was destined to do, by the sounds of it.
Exactly. And for some of you, there will be a point where you will leave that organization. But don't think leaving is going to be the answer.
I think that's that sense of the chase. And for me, I'm really pleased you went through the 3 layers, because if you go straight to the outer, the egoic chasing of purpose, I think that can be the result. This isn't for me. Yeah. There must be something else. The grass will be greener elsewhere. And guess what? And I see this a lot with people I know and work with, is they find, actually, it's kind of the same. I found something kind of the same because I haven't reflected on me enough.
And again, if you go back to the start, if the question is, how do I fully express myself in the world? Then start reflecting on, who am I in this world? Getting to know yourself, loving yourself, accepting yourself.
So Bodhi, thank you for this conversation. I mean, it's lots in it, hugely informative, loads of tips, and I'm tip hungry. Is there one more top tip you've got for listeners if they want to do the inner work, they want to start there, get more reflective? What would be your great tip to start?
And thank you, Rich. It has been a great conversation, and there's so much to explore. Fundamentally, what I would say is this: that every morning when you wake up, there are 2 trains, waiting at the station, and you get to choose which one you want to get on. One is called the resistance train, and one is called the flow train. And every day when you get up, you can get on the resistance train, where I'm resisting my job, I'm resisting life, I'm resisting my emotions, I'm resisting my relationship. And you can see people who are just in this place of resistance. Or you can get on the flow train. And when you get on the flow train, that's where joy lives. You start coming from that inside out, staying in the flow. Whatever's presenting is an opportunity. But if you resist, if you contract, then what happens is you're blocking the flow of energy. And the more you can stay in the flow, do the inner work, acknowledge when you feel frustrated, acknowledge all of those things. Acknowledgement allows you to let go. The more you stay in the flow, notice your seeking mind, notice your controlling mind, those aspects of yourself. You start to stay in the flow. It's a very different experience. And that's the fastest way for the inner and outer purpose. Is to stay in the flow and notice the resistance.
Wow. I love that as a great tip, but a great summary of what we've been talking about today on a big subject. And we've covered a lot. There is more, of course, but thank you so much for bringing your wisdom, your expertise to the podcast today. And I just love that last bit around the choice. There is choice here, resistance and flow, and which one you're going to choose today. So I encourage everyone, obviously, how do you find your flow, find your purpose? Bodhi, Aldridge, thank you so much for joining once again, the first returning guest on the Mojo podcast. What a great way to kick off the 5th series. Bodhi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich. It's been a delight. And we've covered a lot, lots to unpack. So thank you, and thank you to the listeners.
Wow. What a way to start the new series. Did that go deep enough for you? I mean, this is a huge subject, purpose, creating meaning for life. So of course there is so much more. But my hope was this conversation has set off even more questions for you, created more curiosity. Perhaps that longing that Bodhi spoke of, perhaps that's what's really going on for you right now, and this has really piqued the subject for you. Now, if you're new to this podcast, I use this short section at the end to try to draw out some of the key learnings that my guests provided. It's not about summarising the whole thing, that's impossible. Simply maybe the key 3 or 4 key themes that I drew from it. But the wonderful thing is you'll have your own, and I would love to hear those. So please, via LinkedIn or my Instagram @MojoRichard, and through the review section in Apple Podcasts, please do leave your feedback and your feelings about what you got from this episode. So just some of the key standout themes for me: that purpose is accessible to all of us, and it doesn't actually mean changing everything. There are opportunities every day to experience our purpose. And it's really about choice, a really important keyword. We have more choice than we actually give ourselves credit for. How do I want to be? Which train am I going to get on each day? That flow or resistance train. So choice is critical. And just about being open to it, that purpose and the people that will support you on your purpose journey reveals itself to you. Be open to receiving both the clues about purpose, about your true purpose, and the people that are going to support you on your journey. Remember those amazing 4 steps about a purpose that Bodhi shared. So thank you, Bodhi, for your wisdom and your incredible ability to make these really important themes clear and accessible. As I said, please do share your thoughts and appreciation for this episode. The most generous choice is to take a couple of minutes and leave a 5-star rating and a short review on Apple Podcasts. Simply put, this will allow many more people to hear this conversation. And this is a conversation that I firmly believe more people need to hear. I'll be back here in 2 weeks with the next episode. And in that one, it's all about sex and intimate relationships. It will, if you let it, change your life. I guarantee it. Until then, I hope your mojo continues to flow.